Dusty Crew. Good morning, USA.
Good morning, sports fans. It is another beautiful and snowy day here at Syracuse. Joe, I have a question for you. What was the best thing that you ate over this Thanksgiving break?
Well, I got to give it to you. Coming from my Jewish roots, you know, challah is the bread of my soul. But it wasn't just challah. It was challah stuffing. You get everything involved in challah, but the goodies as well. You get the rosemary, you get the chestnuts, you get the onions, you get all of it combined with chopped up challah. My mom does it great. It's probably the best thing my mom has ever made. I love me some challah bread stuffing. It's terrific. What about you, Elie?
I was not expecting that from you.
What can I say?
And you stole mine. Stuffing is my favorite Thanksgiving food, and just like what you said, my mom made a fantastic stuffing, and I enjoyed my break with my family, and hoping everyone else did as well. What was not so great about Thanksgiving was that there was no basketball on. There was football, but
there was football.
we missed the NBA. And what I want to ask you, Joe, is who is some of the teams in the Eastern Conference that had kind of surprised you early on in the season?
Yeah, so first off, I got to give my big shout out to the Orlando Magic. I was actually planning on going to the Orlando Magic Knicks game later in winter break, but that plan fell apart. But it's fine though. I didn't realize the Magic were going to be this good. We're talking about a guy in Paulo Banchero who's averaging 19 points a game. He's incredible. No one really is talking about him as much. I know he won Rookie of the Year this year, but he's excelled to be the leader of this Magic team. And hats off to Jalen Suggs as well. This guy is leading the team in steals. He is, you know, many people gave him a lot of criticism as he was one of the top 5 picks a few years ago in the draft. He's turned out to be one of the best players on the team, and he's leading the team in steals, like I mentioned before. He's doing a great job assisting to guys like Paulo, Cole Anthony, whatever. And I think this team has a real shot. You know, I know they're young. Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner, the Wagner twins are proving that they are, once again, what they showed in Michigan, they can excel like that in the NBA. And I think they have a great shot of doing well in the Eastern Conference to get teams like the Celtics, who they have beat in their 7-game winning streak, which is continuing this night, by the way. So yeah, I think the Magic have a great shot. What about you, Elie?
So actually, I think the Magic are good. They're a young team, as you said. I don't think they could beat the Celtics in a playoff series.
Okay.
But for me, I want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are the number 1 seed in the Western Conference right now.
Seed.
They are 13-4, coming off a big win against a really good Oklahoma City team. And they kind of played the end of that game without Anthony Edwards. He had a scary falling on his hip, and he was out for the rest of the game. But this Minnesota Timberwolves team is one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Rudy Gobert looks like, after a rough first year with the T-Wolves last year, he seems back to his Defensive Player of the Year potential, looking to get his 4th this season. But he's been playing lights out. Karl Anthony Towns has been the perfect sidekick to Anthony Edwards. And I actually really like this roster, how it's configured. Obviously, they have Mike Conley, who's one of the most underrated point guards in the league.
Still is.
And I really like Naz Reid, who they signed to an extension over this offseason. So they have that 3-center lineup that they run sometimes with Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and Naz Reid. 2 of those guys being able to stretch the floor and score. And obviously, if we're going to talk about the Timberwolves, we have to talk about Anthony Edwards, one of the best players, I think, in the NBA, period.
Sure.
Obviously, one of the best guards, one of the best young players. But he's just taken that step. And I've mentioned this multiple times on the show, that third-year players, they step up. And he is taking that leap up to the All-Star, to the All-NBA, into the MVP conversation. And so if he could keep up his stats, and if the Timberwolves can keep up this pace of staying number 1 in the Western Conference, or one of the top seeds in the Western Conference, then he is going to be an MVP candidate for the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, going very quickly off of that, he has a real shot of being not just an All-Star, but an All-Star starter for the Western Conference. I mean, this team, they only have 4 losses. I know it's early, but I mean, this team looks insane. But yeah, I agree completely with your Timberwolves take. And finally, for another surprising take is the Pacers. You know, the Pacers didn't make the playoffs last year. But guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, who many people thought he was like kind of washed, he wasn't as good as he used to be. He's still a great shooter in this NBA and in the NBA season. And Tyrese Halliburton is taking this team by storm. He's averaging over 20 points per game. He is carrying this team along with Miles Turner. The chemistry on this team between Miles Turner, Tyrese Halliburton, and you have Rick Carlisle as the head coach. I think they have a real shot, of competing with other teams in the Eastern Conference. Right now, they're above the play-in tournament. They're also in the in-season tournament as well. They're 9-7. They're looking pretty sharp. I mean, they have a great chance of knocking some teams out, whether it's in the in-season tournament or even the playoffs later on. So.
Yeah, definitely their offense has been explosive. There is something to be desired in their defense. They've letting up a lot of points. But yeah, Tyrese Halliburton is one of the best point guards in the NBA and has been playing lights out.
Yep.
And the other team that I want to talk about is my hometown Houston Rockets. And this talk that we've been this conversation that we're having now is a little bittersweet for me actually, because I think that what's great about this season is a lot of the young teams have been showing out and been playing really well. Minnesota Timberwolves are a young team led by a young Anthony Edwards. The Thunder are one of the best teams.
Yeah.
Pacers are a young team. The Magic are a young team, and the Rockets are a young team. And so I like this. I think that the NBA is in good hands. But just on a personal level, as being an NBA fan for I don't even know how many years I've been an NBA fan, watching and following this league, it's sad to see that some of these guys that we grew up watching are kind of out of the window. We've seen kind of the downfall of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Who knows how long they're going to play for? LeBron, yes, he's playing amazing for a 38-year-old, but how many more years are we going to have of this?
Yeah, the time's taking.
And so it's good to look forward to the future with the NBA with all these great players. But it's still, sad to see that a special era in the NBA's history is ending here. But I think the Rockets are in good hands.
Yeah.
And I really just want to focus on Alperen Sengun.
I love Alperen Sengun.
I've, as someone, as I mentioned before, that's been watching the NBA for years now, and I know the history. I know the history that when certain players are given player comparisons, it doesn't always work out for that player. Vince Carter, when he was drafted, was given the player comparison of Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant also, Ray Allen, all these shooting guards. Magic Johnson was or LeBron James was kind of compared to Magic Johnson. And so,
here we go.
Those player comparisons don't always work out, and it gives kind of a pressure on the players. But the one player comparison that I think is actually warranted is Alperen Sengun and Nikola Jokic.
Oh.
If you watch them side by side, they play the exact same. That soft touch, that amazing passing, just light on their feet, but for a big guy. And, Alperen Sengun has, his stats are pretty good. They're not out of this world like Nikola Jokic.
Okay.
But he's only 22, so he still has a lot of time. And I just think that Alperen Sengun, alongside with these other young players and the veterans they have on this team, and Ime Udoka, the Rockets, right now are the 8th seed, 8-7, which is, pretty good, definitely better than what we had going on last year. But still have a lot of things to work to, but will be one of the best teams in the Western Conference for years to come, as long as they keep that core of young guys together.
Yeah.
So, Joe, out of all these 4 teams that we spoke about, the Rockets, the Timberwolves, the Pacers, and the Magic, who is the best? What is the best team you see here?
Honestly, I gotta go with the Rockets on this one. I mean, the Rockets are just they're doing some business down in Houston. I mean, you mentioned Alperen Sengun. Honestly, he's one of my top players in the NBA. I'm got Amanda quickly on the Knicks. I think Alperen Sengun is up there. He's the center position in the NBA is obviously weakened, but I think Alperen Sengun is knocking it out of the park, and I think the Rockets have a great chance of doing well in the Western Conference. Even right now they're in the play-in tournament, but I think they can have a chance to go with one of the top 6 teams in the Western Conference.
As a biased Rockets fan, obviously I would have to go. I think the Rockets are the best, but I think that the Timberwolves are actually the best team here, not just because they have the best record. I think that out of all the 4 teams that we just spoke about, they have the best individual player on their team, Anthony Edwards. And come playoff time, superstars, obviously it's important to have depth and, role players, but superstars win playoff series. And he's a guy that I trust to take the last shot every single time. He can get me a clutch bucket whenever I want to. He's a 3-level scorer. And so the Timberwolves, if they could keep, this roster together and healthy, and Anthony Edwards keeps up what he's doing, I think they actually have a chance to make some noise in the Western Conference this year. All right, guys, I'm Elie.
And I'm Joe.
And we'll send it to Cam and Gabe.
Thanks, Elie and Joe. Cam, I'll tell you, just like a Chris Middleton shot when it comes clutch, those two do not miss. That Bucks in-season tournament win last night did a lot for my mental health. I'm feeling good.
I'm happy for you.
What also did a lot for my mental health was the Thanksgiving games.
Yeah.
And I want to start with the first one. The Detroit Lions played the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Cam, sum up that game in one word.
It was exciting.
Yes. The word I would use is exuberating.
Exuberating.
Yeah. It was proof that Jordan Love is that guy. If he plays smart like he played in that game, he is that guy.
Yeah. I wouldn't get too excited, Gabe. A game's a game. Every quarterback has a good game in their life. Jamarcus Russell, at one point, had a good game.
That's fair. That's a fair point. You're making a fair
And
point.
the Packers have moved from the 8th pick to probably the 12th pick in the draft.
Okay. Cam, I don't know why you're squashing my
I'm-
vibe right now.
I'm just kidding.
That's
I'm
quite
just kidding.
hurtful.
It was a good win, and it was a surprising win because the Lions have been very good lately. Were they 8-2?
Yes.
And the Packers came in there and handled business, but the Lions did almost come back, so you got to be worried about that late game defense.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Barry, whenever he's being a defensive coach, I'm always going to be scared about it. Speaking of coaching not going well, you and I are going to do a little segment on that in just a second. But first, Commanders and Cowboys. Would it be fair to say the most entertaining part of that entire game was Dolly Parton's show at halftime?
I'd probably say it's Deron Bland breaking the pick
That was
six
also
record.
impressive. The Cowboys were working 9 to 5. The Commanders seemed to have the day off, even though they were playing football. I don't know. This was a game that like the result was never in doubt.
Yeah. And speaking of the day off, I think the Seahawks also took the day off.
Yeah, the Seahawks absolutely did. They got manhandled by the 49ers. It was good for me because that's slowly increasing the Packers' chances of
Yeah.
getting a wild card spot. But you know, you want to see the Seahawks pull it, and I don't know if that's going to happen. I think Geno is kind of regressing. I think that there was that spark last year that I don't see there. What are your thoughts on the Seahawks team? Like, what is going wrong here?
I feel like it's a weaker NFC, so they'll definitely have a chance to make the playoffs. But they're just a mediocre team. That's really all it is. Like, it's good coaching. The team's playing better than they probably should be playing. They got a good amount of young pieces, especially on the defensive side. But again, it's like, yeah, I think they're a wild card team that'll probably lose in the first round, just like last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, Cam, then we had a Black Friday game. First game on Black Friday, and I forgot that it was happening. I'm going to be honest with you.
Me too.
But touchdowns seemed to be on sale because the Dolphins got several of them. How do you think this game went?
That was a good Black Friday reference.
Thank you,
on
I
sale.
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I try and come up with these before the show. I'll say, ready, I'm going to use one of my 3 fantasy references. Drafting Tyreek Hill in the second round has been one of the best decisions I made. He's fantastic.
I don't know how you got him in the second round, but I'll give myself one fantasy reference too. The Dolphins' defense is what caused me to lose in fantasy this week because
buddy.
they returned a 99-yard pick six.
Sorry
But-
about that, friend.
So the big question is Zach Wilson really the problem of this Jets team?
Yeah. What do you think?
I think they should have tried to sign someone like Carson Wentz, if I'm being honest.
I agree.
Once the injury first happened, maybe give Wilson a week or two to prove it, and then he just didn't. Like, Tim Boyle is not the answer.
No.
It's like,
I believe it was 1 touchdown and 13 interceptions for Tim Boyle at UConn, correct?
I don't think he was at UConn, but it was definitely his college stats.
But either way, dude
Yes.
was horrible.
It's just like, it just doesn't make much sense. We're like, Zach Wilson's the problem. We're going to make a change. We're turning our hopes around this season. Tim Boyle, you're up.
Aaron Rodgers playing this season or no?
I think he will, just to tell everyone, like, screw you for laughing at me when I said I was going to be back this season.
Okay.
Because, like, everyone, like, Aaron Rodgers kind of has the reputation of being, like, the town weirdo in the NFL.
Well,
like,
he kind of is. Let's be real here.
And, like, when he's, like, he tears his Achilles off the bone, and then he's like, yeah, I'll be back in, like, 4 months. Like, everyone's like,
crazy guy's gonna sit in a dark room and his Achilles is gonna go back together. Yeah, I agree.
but, like, I think he'll come back just to prove everyone, like, I can come back.
All right, well, next one, Buccaneers, Colts. The Colts winning here, not a result that I personally thought was going to happen.
I thought it was going to happen.
I was high on this Buccaneers team, and I still am. I mean, the NFC South is weak. The Falcons aren't playing great. The Colts look really, really good, and that's without star quarterback Anthony Richardson.
Shane Steichen looks very good,
He
and
looks
I always knew
very
he was
good.
going to be good because when he was with the Eagles, he was the big reason the Eagles' offense looks so good, and I believe he's the reason the Eagles' offense has taken a tiny bit of a step back this year. Not even a tiny bit; they're just not as dynamic as they were before.
And possible Jonathan Taylor thumb injury, so we'll monitor that. But looks like the Colts might be, a real threat in the AFC South. What's really interesting in the AFC South is that it's just a competitive division now. We're going to jump to the Texans-Jaguars game, a game that really absolutely went down to the wire. And the reason the Texans team is so much better is simply because of C.J. Stroud.
Yeah. C.J. Stroud's incredible, but you also have to give it to the coaching staff around. You also have to give a hand to the coaching staff around him. D'Amico Ryans has done a great job. Like, do you think C.J. Stroud would be as good if he was drafted by the Panthers, which we will talk about in a little bit, but...
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. C.J. Stroud, while he doesn't have great weapons, he does at least have weapons. The Panthers don't really have anyone to throw to.
Adam Thielen was one of the top receivers in fantasy.
Adam Thielen is 33. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion.
Jerry Rice was 33 at one point.
Your dad was 33 at one point. I don't see Rob on the football field. That's all I'm saying.
Jerry Rice was still on the football field.
Oh, okay.
Tom Brady was winning rings at 33, Gabe.
All right,
LeBron
Cam,
James was winning rings at 33. Michael Jordan, I don't know if he was, I'm not aware of his age,
Will
but
it
I'm pretty sure he was winning rings at
will
33.
it upset you less if I own up to the fact that me not thinking D'Amico Ryans was going to be good is maybe the coldest take I've ever had?
And you've had some pretty bad ones,
I've
too.
had some pretty bad ones. I'm going to be real here.
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know
You're
why you're attacking me so much.
You know what, Gabe? I've always thought you're actually a pretty good future teller and fortune teller when it comes to sports. So I'll give you.
Thanks, man. I
I'll lay
appreciate
off you
that.
for a little bit. I'm just giving you a hard time.
All right, well, I'm predicting a future for the Patriots and Giants, and it's bleak for both of them. The Giants, and it's bleak for all of us who had to watch that game. The
Yeah.
Giants won, but like this wasn't a statement win for
Syracuse
anybody.
alum Tommy DeVito continues his win streak.
TD got, he threw a TD. So
Yeah.
very nice. The Patriots just look bad. It's just sad to watch. Steelers, Bengals,
The Steelers are.
400 yards of offense without Matt Canada. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Maybe Kenny Pickett's not the problem with his small hands and such. Maybe it was Matt Canada.
All we know is that Kenny Pickett used those small hands to say goodbye, Matt Canada, and hello, victory. Panthers, Titans, friend of the show, Eric, who, we love, is a Panthers fan. And I watched this game. My heart broke for him. I just wanted to find friend of the show, Eric, and hug him.
Yeah. You know who won't be getting any hugs? Frank
Who?
Reich. Because
That's
he just
true.
hit the unemployment line.
Fired. You think Frank Reich gets a job somewhere else next year?
No.
Like maybe the Bears
He might
if
have
they
to-
get Caleb Williams?
No, he might have to take a year or two off after this. Getting fired twice in 2 years is not a great look, especially fired twice in 2 years before the season even ended.
Yeah. That's
I think
fair.
he'll take a year or two off. I still think he has a lot of not potential because he's on the older side, but I still think he can be a serviceable head coach. Not a head coach, maybe an offensive coordinator because we saw how good that worked on the Eagles.
Yeah. I could possibly see him honestly going to Green Bay and helping in the development of Jordan Love as like a quarterback coach. I think would be pretty interesting.
I could see that.
All right, next, Saints-Falcons. Oof. It's just both offenses are stagnant, and while the Saints make sense because you have a lot of different circumstances going on in that organization with some injuries, some arrests, a lot of different things, the Falcons don't. We keep talking about this. The Falcons won by 9 points. It shouldn't have been that close.
Yeah.
Arthur Smith is a problem, and his seat is heating up, and we're going to discuss that. Rams-Cardinals. The Rams are good compared to the Cardinals, of course.
Okay, compared to the Cardinals, but a lot of teams are good compared to the Cardinals.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not really
Except
gonna
for the Cowboys.
I agree.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
Everyone can bond over the Cowboys losing. Browns-Broncos. The Broncos 5 in a row, I believe. Really putting together
Broncos are
something here.
6-5 now.
I believe so.
Yeah. And everyone said Russ couldn't cook.
Uh,
Broncos country, let's ride.
Broncos country, let's ride. Now we get to, in my opinion, the best game of the entire season so far. Bills and Eagles in a game that just led to all the fingernails on my hands just being gone. And I don't even care about the Bills or the Eagles.
I was actually I didn't get to watch much of this game. I only really watched the final kick because I was on a bus ride home to get to Syracuse.
Sorry, buddy.
From home.
But it's probably good for your heart that you didn't watch it. I'm going to be
No,
honest with
I
you.
was paying attention to my phone and doing like a play-by-play. So it still tugged at my heartstrings
Mm-hmm.
seeing oh, Eagles made like a 7-yard play. Oh wait, Jalen Hurts just fumbled.
Yep. But then Jake Elliott,
Jake Elliott's
in the rain, just stud. That's all I'm
Jake
saying.
Elliott's a top 3 kicker in the NFL, and anyone who wants to say he isn't just doesn't watch football.
Absolutely. Chiefs, Raiders.
One more thing about the Eagles, sorry.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, buddy.
I'm a little bit worried about the Eagles. They're playing games way too close, and I'm actually not too. I'm optimistic about them, of course, because they're 10-1. I feel like they just play too many games close. They start off in like a deficit. not hope they drop a game, but like I feel like losing a game would definitely help them if they got punched in the mouth, kind of. Like
I can see that.
they start off every game so stagnant, and they have to fight their way back up. They always seem to be at a deficit at some point in the game, and that's just not going to work in the playoffs when you're playing teams that have their shit together.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it for this game was just simply not having Lane Johnson, someone who
but
stops
against
those
the
big plays from
Chiefs-
happening.
Against the Chiefs, the Eagles look completely stagnant until the last 5 minutes.
Absolutely. I mean, remains to be seen, but I agree with you. But speaking of the Chiefs, they played a very interesting game against the Raiders.
Yeah, they went down 14 early to the Raiders.
All I'm saying is showing some weaknesses that the Packers might be able to exploit this Sunday. That's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's really my takeaway from this. The Packers can really get some good takeaways from this.
All right. Ravens, Chargers, Justin Herbert pulled a Justin Herbert, and I think we can say it. He pulled a Justin Herbert. He threw an interception at the wrong time and cost his team possibly the win.
Again, I'll keep saying this until he proves me wrong. He's the most overrated QB in the NFL.
I think we should start using the phrase pulling a Justin Herbert.
Okay.
Messing up at the exact wrong time. We used to call it pulling a Brett Favre, but I think it can be Justin Herbert now.
Yeah.
All right.
Pulling a Brett Favre is like stealing a bunch of money from welfare.
That's fair. That's fair. Finally, Bears-Vikings. The Bears win with no touchdowns.
Coach Flus is the GOAT.
I don't know if I would go that far. This is just a bad Monday Night Football game.
I feel like people were definitely like the Josh Dobbs train went to a screeching halt.
4 interceptions, I believe.
Yeah, 2 of them weren't his fault though, but even 2 picks is not very good.
And it very well could have been a 5th if T.J. Hawkinson didn't bat the ball down. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So, but your backup quarterback played like a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So like I don't get why Vikings fans are like really up in arms about this. And now like it would be interesting. Do you think Josh Dobbs comes out at starting for next week? Because they have 2 healthy QBs on the roster, Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall.
I don't think he will, but I do think he will play, and I think he'll be the reason they win.
I like that.
That's me personally. All right, Cam, we have a new segment we're going to talk about, and it's called Hot Asses. Is this a joke about Cam and Gabe, or is it about hot seats in the NFL? And we're going to do this for coaches. Okay. Brandon Staley. Is the seat hot, yes or no?
Oh, I thought you asked if he had a hot ass.
That's a completely different segment. You can find that on the Good Morning Sports Fans Patreon. Brandon Staley, will he be fired?
Yes.
All right. Ron Rivera, fired or not?
Yes.
Bill Belichick, fired or not?
No, I don't think he'll be fired.
Do you think Bill Belichick will leave New England and maybe go to the Chargers?
I think he's not going to the Chargers. But no, he's not going to the Chargers. If he does, you can remember this. I don't think he's going to the Chargers. I think Belichick, if they get a top 2 pick, will stay. I think if they don't, he'll retire.
Drake May will be learning the Patriots way.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. That was a great rhyme. Sean McDermott. This is an interesting one.
I think if they don't make the playoffs, he's done. But I think if they make the playoffs and even lose in the wild card round, as long as they don't get blown out, I think he'll still be the head coach.
All right. Coach Flus. Matt Eberflus.
Coach Flus. It's tough.
Is that the guy you want coaching the possible #1 pick in the NFL?
That's my point. I think when it comes to Eberflus, if the Panthers...
But I kind of would have said that about Frank Reich. That's all I'm saying. So.
Well, they hired Frank Reich after they got the #1 pick. And Frank Reich definitely has a lot better of a pedigree than Matt Eberflus does. Frank Reich has a ring as an offensive coordinator and a head play caller.
Sure.
But Matt Eberflus, I think it's kind of like a reverse situation with Belichick. I feel like if they don't get a top 2 pick and get a QB, they might keep him around to stay with Justin Fields. But if they do get a top 1 or 2 pick, they'll probably fire him just so they could have like a new coach, new quarterback. Like, it's a new era, you know?
All right, the Mustachio Commander, Arthur Smith.
I think Arthur Smith will probably be fired. But
I think you should.
The Falcons are making a playoff push right now, even though they're not playing very good. He should be fired, but if they make the playoffs, like, I can see him, like, there seems to be once a year there's a playoff coach who gets fired.
All right, the big dog, Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles? I like Todd Bowles, but it depends on how the Buccaneers do. They seem to have a lot of loyalty towards Todd Bowles because they didn't fire him last year, and they haven't fired him yet. I think if they keep playing the way they're doing, especially like Baker's not looked bad at all, I think they might keep him.
All right, a dark horse, Mike Vrabel.
I think Mike Vrabel will be fired.
Okay.
There's a dark horse every year where like someone surprising's fired, even though it shouldn't really be surprising because I don't think Vrabel's done a very good job. I think they kind of rode off of Derrick Henry playing like Derrick Henry like 2 or 3 years ago, and now that he's not playing like that anymore, then they're having a lot of trouble.
All right, I've got a dark horse here that I think might get fired, Dennis Allen. We seem to be in disagreement about that one. I think that the Saints think that Derek Carr put them in contention to win the NFC South, and they're going to back Derek Carr, and they will cut Dennis Allen in response.
I can see that.
Finally, I have an empty seat for you. Jim Harbaugh. His ass needs to be in a chair, because I don't think he's staying in the NCAA, because punishment's going to be coming down for him. If he leaves and goes to the NFL, where do you think John Harbaugh will be coaching?
I think Jim Harbaugh will probably be.
Jim, I'm sorry, Jonas's brother. That's on me. I messed up.
No, you're good.
Jimbo. Where will Jimbo be? Not Fisher. I don't want to see him in the NFL, but that would be funny.
That's a tough one. Give me your thought.
As of right now, I personally think he might go to the Bears,
The Bears. Interesting.
which I don't like, but I do think if you're going to bring someone in to train the number one pick, to not have bad habits, and to be a good
Does
player,
that mean they'll draft J.J. McCarthy first overall?
that'd be funny as heck if the Bears did that.
It'd be really stupid.
What about you? Do you have one? Maybe the Chargers?
Maybe the Chargers, but I think they'd promote Kellen Moore. But I'm going to go with the Panthers.
Okay. Friend of the show, Eric, would like that. Speaking of Eric, I know he's going to talk soon, so we'll get out of here and let them go. We'll go back to Elie and Joe.
Thanks, Cam and Gabe. We're going to send it to Eric and Chris for college football.
Thanks, Elie and Joe. Welcome back to another week of college football. We really hope that all of our college viewers had a great Thanksgiving. Would you say the same?
Yeah, I had a great Thanksgiving.
And there's a lot that's been happening over the last 10 days, honestly. And for
Yeah.
Syracuse, this is great.
It is
Dino
great.
Babers, no more.
No more. And now we have Fran Brown, Georgia defensive assistant. It'll be interesting to see. He hasn't had play calling duties really or a coordinator job outside of just defensive assistant at the couple places that he's been. But I think if he puts the right staff around him, his recruiting, #1 in the nation, it could be really good for us.
Sir, what record do you see Syracuse having for next year? 6 games, 7 games, 8 games?
I think anywhere between 6 to 8 games.
Mhm.
I'd like to see a winning season from our new coach.
Moving on, Mike Elko replaces Jimbo Fisher as the new Texas A&M coach.
I'm a big fan of this hire. I think that Elko built, above average teams, above the Duke football standard teams in Durham, and now he gets to do that at Texas A&M. I think the hardest part for him is going to be managing the spotlight because there's a lot of eyes and a lot of money in Texas A&M football.
I agree. Do you have a prediction for Texas A&M for next year?
I think he should shoot for 9 or 10 wins, beat the 8-4 that Jimbo Fisher gave him every year.
Yeah, I also noticed that in a contract, there's kind of some bonuses. So if they make it to say the SEC championship game, that's $1 million. If they make it to the college football players, it's another $2 million.
Right.
So I've noticed that if he pretty much makes the playoffs, there's an additional year added to his contract.
Right. I think they learned from the wrongs of the Jimbo Fisher contract, and they didn't want to make it fully guaranteed this time.
I respect it. Next up, Oregon State head coach Jonathan Smith replaces Mel Fisher at Michigan State.
Yeah, Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker, he leaves in some controversy, and there was an investigation and all that stuff. I think Jonathan Smith, he's like the Mike Elko of Oregon State. He built 2 really good teams for a program that seemed to be struggling and just kind of puttering out, and he gets out of this whole wake of the Pac-12 disintegrating, and he gets to go to the Big Ten, which is a thriving conference, and it'll be competitive. But being in the Big Ten, you have a path to the playoff every year.
Yeah. And in replace of Jonathan Smith, they actually promoted their defensive coordinator, Trent Bray.
Yeah, I think that's another good move. He's been with the program for over a decade, and I think he's probably the right person to keep their team culture together as they navigate the murky waters that is the Pac-12 leaving. Rest in peace, Pac-12.
Rest in peace.
Coming to a close faster than we wanted it to. Pac-12 After Dark, we're not going to miss you.
No.
Or no, we're going to miss you. We're not going to forget you.
Now, moving forward, we have some pretty important championship games this weekend that we think that will definitely enjoy. First one being #1 Georgia versus #8 Alabama.
I think this should be a good game. Kirby Smart and Nick Saban get to go at it again. Mm-hmm. It happens a lot, but I think they keep it entertaining, and Alabama owns Atlanta, so we'll see what happens.
Who do you take?
I still think Georgia takes it.
I respect that. I think we're going to go with Alabama, actually. I just think that, Nick Saban is a phenomenal coach. I mean, they both are obviously great coaches, but I feel like, I feel like Nick Saban can put on a show, and that Jalen Monroe, he's gotten more comfortable. He seems to be the clear QB1 for this Alabama team, and this offense has looked great. So
I would have to disagree. I think it's Georgia. I think they're the most complete team out of the two. But I think next year, Alabama has a chance to be in the top 4 again, like they always do.
yeah. Moving forward for the Pac-12, you have number 5 Oregon versus number 3 Washington.
I think this is going to be a really good game. I feel like the winner of this game makes the top 4 pretty much. I think that's how this is playing out. It's not as much of a game that can cause chaos in the top 4 like we think it can, but its winner gets to go and play in the college football playoff, and I think Washington takes it.
Mm-hmm. So which quarterback between the two teams matters more? Is it Bo Nix or is it Penix Jr.?
I mean, I think they're both important. I don't think either team gets to where they are without their quarterback, and I think they're both Heisman candidates. So I think for these two quarterbacks, this should be their most important game of the year because this is their pretty much last chance to leave an impression on the voters for the Heisman.
I agree. For the Big 12, we have number 18 Oklahoma State versus number 7 Texas.
I like Texas in this one. I don't see a way that Oklahoma State wins, but Oklahoma State does always put up a fight against Texas, and it should be a good game.
Now, if Texas were to somehow lose this game, how does that really kind of change or affect these CFP rankings?
I think it opens up a door for Alabama if they win their game, and what it does is it opens up a door for Ohio State because all they need is for the one-loss teams to not be conference champions. So they need, Texas to lose, they need Florida State to lose, and then the Pac-12 doesn't really matter for them getting in. And then they need Alabama to lose, or win. They need Alabama to win, Georgia to lose.
Let's see. For the ACC, we have number 14 Louisville versus number 4 Florida. This is a Florida State team that is 12-0, 11-0. And if they were to win this game, Eric, I guess you gotta let them in, right?
You have to. They'll be undefeated conference champions. They can't really take quarterback into effect for the playoff voting because it is the entire season and their quarterback got them all the way there. If they can win with their backup and make it in, I don't know how they fare in the playoffs, but they can at least say they made it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Louisville has a chance?
I think Louisville has a chance. They've been playing pretty well all year, and if they can really shut down the Florida State offense, then I think they can put up enough points to win.
Let's see. And finally, in the Big Ten, we have number 2 Michigan versus number 16 Iowa.
I think this is Michigan's game to lose. I think
well.
Michigan's going to win. The betting lines were half a point, a half for Iowa. So unless Iowa somehow comes out with some new offensive coordinator calling plays, I don't think they win this game.
And now we finally have our predictions for our top 4 for the CFP. Eric?
I think my dream top 4, because I like chaos, would be Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and then Ohio State, because I like the chaos of Florida State losing. I like the chaos of Texas losing. I think it would make for an interesting and fun playoff. I think realistically, though, it's Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. I think that's the most likely scenario.
Why do you think that?
Because I think they're all teams that have found a way to win, and I think when the lights are shining in the big game, they're gonna get it done.
Yep. So I predict you have Georgia winning the whole thing.
I don't think Georgia wins the whole thing. I think John Harbaugh, Jim, whatever Harbaugh is coaching Michigan now, he has something to prove, and he wants to win it all before he leaves for the NFL.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And then I guess for me, I have Georgia, of course, I have Michigan. Sneaky pick, but I want Alabama to actually go in. I want to see Alabama, Georgia.
I think it would be fun.
I think that would just be good to see because again, Alabama is pretty much for the whole year been sitting, at this, number 8 rank, and we haven't really seen them move up or down really in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of see them maybe get in a mix, and then also Oregon. I haven't been impressed with Washington at all this year. I just think that they're a great team. Their offense is phenomenal, but some of the games, they just kind of seem to be very close. Oregon State, that went down to the wire. USC went down to the wire. Oregon also went down to the wire. Washington State, and against Arizona State, they only scored 15 points.
Right.
So I just feel like I haven't really been impressed by Washington the last few weeks. And I know, Oregon, their opponents have not, been the best. Their opponents are not good, but you got to still give credit to this Oregon team. I mean, they're playing lights out ever since that loss to Washington. And Bo Nix, he's the truth.
Yeah. So who do you have winning it all then in that scenario?
In this scenario, I think I would actually still give it to Georgia. Again, you got to give them credit. I mean, the last few weeks they've beat some ranked opponents. I mean, they beat Missouri. I mean, they blew out Ole Miss. They blew out Tennessee. Again, all 3 ranked teams in the SEC, which you got to have respect for. So this is a Georgia team that has looked great, and they have just a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense is also lights out. I mean, so I think again that Georgia could definitely go for a three-peat, but Nick Saban, I mean, again, he's gonna have a game plan.
He's a hard out any way you take it. I mean, I don't think that Georgia's a bad pick. I don't personally want to see them win again, but I think they have the talent to do so.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for us. We're going to send it back to Elie and Joe.
That's all for us at Good Morning Sports fans. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Have a good one.